It came from the fact that we are living in a world where half of the population consists of women, and still in 2018 all over the world women do not have the same possibilities as men. So we have a wish to challenge these patriarchal structures within religious institutions, and we do that very concretely by giving women the possibility of leading the prayer, giving the khutbah, and giving Islamic spiritual care, which is the essential part of being an imam or an imama. It's to serve the people or the community. The idea also came to me back in 1999 when I was studying and I was doing my thesis on Sufism and Islamic activism in Damascus. I was doing my fieldwork and I was listening to the Grand Mufti's Friday prayer. And I had my first visions and thoughts about what would it be like if the religious leader, the spiritual leader, or the Imam, the Grand Mufti, what would it be like if he was a woman? I wrote my first article, it's called a Muslim Manifesto, about the necessity of mosques with female imams, but it took us 15 years to get to this point. So through the last 15 years I have been an activist, an academic. I wrote 4 books about Islam, and now I felt that time was ready 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now. So we founded the Femimam movement. We recruited Muslim scholars within different fields who wanted to be activist in the Femimam movement and who would help us in the advocation of a mosque with female imams. And then in August 2016 we finally led the first Friday prayer for other women, and I led the Friday prayer and Saliha Maria Fete, she conducted the Friday prayer. People go on telling you that something is impossible, that it's impossible to change these patriarchal structures or the patriarchal readings of the Quran. But I realized that it is actually possible for a small group of Muslims, activists, to change the narrative on Islam and to challenge these patriarchal readings and structures. And we did it. We were lucky that we got the Mariam Mosque sponsored, and so we developed from a movement into an institution. And when you develop from a movement into an institution, you become more powerful because you have the possibility of conducting the Friday prayer, of giving Islamic spiritual care, of starting an Islamic academy as we did in the Mariam Mosque, where we teach Arab philosophy, Sufism, Islamic feminism, Islamic law, how to recite the Quran, and many other topics. We also started an Arabic school for children and for adults, and Quran recitations. So we started to create a living community of Muslim activists. And we also tried to disseminate new narratives on Islam in Europe, which is very important because we have a growing anti-Islamic rhetoric and propaganda. And actually I see the growing anti-Islamic rhetoric and propaganda is one of the biggest obstacles to our project. Being an imam is not only about leading the prayer or giving the khutbah, it's actually about serving your community. So I try to serve the community the best way I can, and I don't see myself as a role model, but I try to be a mirror and to reflect the people who comes to us with all their dilemmas and problems. I try to embrace it, I try to be that mirror, and I try to guide these people as good as I can and help them in order to find their own solutions to their dilemmas. And one of the most acute dilemmas of our time in the youth, not only in Denmark but all over the world, it's the dilemma of interfaith marriages. I myself, I'm a mother of 4 children. I have 2 girls and 2 boys, So what are the chances of my two small girls growing up one day and falling in love with a non-Muslim? It's quite huge because we live in Denmark, we live in Europe. So this is a dilemma. It's a dilemma, a growing dilemma of the youth. So what I do, I try to find Islamic solutions to existing dilemmas in the youth. And Tunisia is the first Islamic country to practice this. They changed the law and gave Muslim women the right to marry non-Muslims, Jews or Christians, and I think that's very important. In the Mariam Mosque we also have constructed a marriage contract that gives Muslim women the right to divorce. Polygamy is forbidden. The woman has the right over the children in case of a divorce, and in case of mental or physical violence, the marriage is annulled. So these 4 premises are vital in order to create a society with gender equality, and the woman's right to divorce is essential because the Muslim women today do not have this basic right, which is a basic right in Islam. She doesn't have it in real life. So these are some of the things that we try to do. Rabia al-Adawiya, she really inspired me. She died in 801 and was one of the women who laid the fundament for Sufism, which is the spiritual path within Islam. I was introduced to her when I was younger, and I really find her poems inspiring, and the way she saw Islam and the way her interpretation. And especially one poem impressed me, and it's a poem where she says, I carry a lamp with fire in one hand and a bottle with water in my other hand. And with these 2 things I shall set fire to heaven and turn off hellfire, so that the travelers towards God can see the true light. And then she said, God, Allah, if I worship you because I fear hellfire, let me burn in hellfire. And God, Allah, if I worship you because I long for paradise, close the gates of paradise in front of me. But God, if I worship you for the sake of your love for the light, then may your mercy be upon me. And I really like what she does in that poem, or how I interpret her words. I think that she is like deconstructed these manipulated dichotomies. Of course it concerns everyone. I do believe that the silent revolutions that we never hear anything about are just as valuable as the noisy revolutions. And revolutions are fought in homes, at schools, in families, in institutions, at a society level, at a political level, and I think it concerns everyone. Half of the population consists of women, and fighting for gender equality and a person's right to speak is a universal cause. When you change your structure and you start a mosque with female imams, you change the structure, then you change the power balance. And when you change the power balance, people will get upset. This is a natural thing. Like when the first female priests were being ordained within the Protestant Church in Denmark in 1948, 500 priests, male priests, were condemning their right to act as female priests, and they were fighting against it. And also today, of course, we are opposed, but I was prepared for this. So I think that even though some oppose us, we also have a lot of support, and I always try to focus on the support. So I tell the story of the Grand Imam from Indonesia who comes to the Mariam Mosque and leads the prayer and bless the mosque and bless the concept of female imams. So I think it's important to tell these stories. And he represents 200,000 Muslims on his Friday prayers every Friday. So even though that we are being opposed in some circles, I know that we also have a lot of support, and I can feel it. But to me, the most important thing is the community. Yeah, I mean, it is a problem because we don't have an imam education in Denmark, so we have to rely on the Western educational system. So when we try to recruit female imams, it's really a challenge. And we try to to recruit women who have a master or a PhD within Islamic studies or related study, but it is difficult to find women, also because it is controversial still to become an imama. I think that if we try to institutionalize it or give funding to people who would be able to make it more institutionalized, maybe it would become more somehow attractive, because you would go to this education and educate yourself. But in the Mariam Mosque, as an alternative, we have started the Islamic Academy, which is also a vision and an intention to educate a new generation of female imams in Denmark. I really admire the mouchidates in Morocco, and I think it's very important to educate women and to recruit women who can go out, especially in the rural areas in Morocco, and educate a new generation of Muslims, both girls, boys, men and women. So I think what they do is very valuable and important. We are planning to make a conference where we would like to gather existing female imams from all the existing countries in the world today where they have female imams, and also invite the mouchidates from Morocco, and because it's important to learn from each other and to share examples and experiences. I met Amina Wadud at Berkeley University in December 2017, and I also spoke to Halima Krausen. She's a female imam in Hamburg, and she advised me, and so did Amina Wadud. I had some questions about how to do everything, because building up a new mosque community is not, it's difficult and it's challenging, and so therefore I think it's important that we connect.